You keep wondering why you transform into someone completely different the moment you fall in love, don't you? One day, you're this confident, independent woman with clear boundaries and strong opinions, and the next day, you're desperately trying to decode his text messages, changing your entire personality to match what you think he wants, and losing pieces of yourself so gradually that you don't even notice until you look in the mirror and ask, who is this person staring back at me? Carl Jung, one of the most brilliant minds in psychology, understood this phenomenon better than anyone, and what he discovered about the female psyche in love will completely change how you see your own patterns in relationships forever. Jung identified something he called the anima and animus, the unconscious feminine and masculine aspects that exist within every person, and he noticed that women often project their animus, their inner masculine, onto their romantic partners in ways that completely dissolve their sense of self. When you fall in love, you're not just falling for that man. You're falling into an unconscious psychological trap that makes you believe his validation is more important than your own inner voice, his needs more urgent than your own, and his approval more valuable than your own self-respect. This isn't weakness. This isn't being too emotional or too needy. This is an ancient psychological pattern that Jung traced back to our deepest unconscious structures, and understanding it is the first step to breaking free from it. Think about your last serious relationship and be honest with yourself about what happened to your personality during those first few months of intense attraction. Did you start listening to his favorite music, even though you never liked that genre before? Did you find yourself agreeing with his political opinions, or his views on topics you'd never even considered important? Did you begin to see your own friends and hobbies as somehow less interesting or valuable compared to his world? Jung would say this happens because women often unconsciously merge their identity with their romantic partner as a way of accessing their own inner masculine energy, the part of them that represents action, decisiveness, and power in the world. The problem is that when you outsource your animus to another person, you give away your own authority over your life. And this creates what Jung called a state of psychological possession, where you become addicted to external validation and lose touch with your own inner compass. You start making decisions based on what will keep him happy, rather than what serves your highest good. You interpret his moods as reflections of your worth as a partner, and you begin to experience anxiety and depression whenever there's distance or conflict in the relationship, because you've literally given him the keys to your psychological well-being. Jung observed that this pattern is particularly dangerous because it feels like love. It feels like devotion and commitment and the beautiful surrender that romantic movies and songs celebrate. But it's actually a form of psychological abandonment of yourself that leaves you vulnerable to manipulation, emotional abuse, and the kind of devastating heartbreak that makes you question everything about who you are and what you're worth. The man doesn't even have to be consciously manipulative for this dynamic to destroy you, because when you've made him responsible for your sense of self, every interaction becomes loaded with the potential for validation or rejection, and you start walking on eggshells in your own relationship. Here's what Jung understood that most relationship advice completely misses. This isn't about learning to love yourself first or building self-esteem or practicing self-care, though those things can help. This is about recognizing that you have an inner masculine energy, your animus, that belongs to you and needs to be developed and integrated rather than projected onto romantic partners. Your animus represents your ability to take action in the world, to make decisions based on logic and reasoning, to set boundaries, to pursue your goals with focus and determination, and to validate your own experiences without needing external confirmation. When you're in touch with your own animus energy, you enter relationships as a whole person rather than as half of a person looking for completion. And this changes everything about how you show up with men. You stop being the woman who loses herself in love and become the woman who enhances herself through love, maintaining your own identity, your own interests, your own opinions, and your own life direction, while also being genuinely open to deep intimacy and connection with a partner who respects and appreciates your wholeness. I've seen this pattern play out in countless women's lives, and it's heartbreaking how often intelligent, successful women who have their act together in every other area of life become completely different people when romantic feelings are involved. There's the lawyer who built a thriving practice from nothing but can't make a single decision about her weekend plans without consulting her boyfriend. There's the artist whose work was bold and authentic, until she started dating someone who made subtle comments about her style being too unconventional. There's the entrepreneur who sold her business to move across the country for a man who never even asked her to. make that sacrifice but somehow made her feel like proving her love required, giving up everything she'd worked for. Jung would say these women are all experiencing the same fundamental disconnection from their animus, and they're trying to access their own power and authority through their romantic relationships instead of claiming it directly. The tragedy is that this approach never works because when you give someone else the responsibility for your psychological integration, you're asking them to do something that can only be done from within, and you're setting up a dynamic where your growth and evolution depends on maintaining their approval and attention. The path out of this pattern starts with recognizing it when it happens. And Jung gave us some very specific signs to watch for that indicate you're projecting your animus onto a romantic partner. Notice if you find yourself constantly seeking his opinion before making decisions that you used to make easily on your own. Pay attention to whether you've stopped engaging in activities that used to bring you joy because they don't align with his interest or lifestyle. Check whether you're interpreting his emotional states as evidence of your success or failure as a partner. Observe if you've started to see your own goals and ambitions as less important than supporting his dreams and aspirations. These are all indicators that you've unconsciously handed over your personal power to someone else. And while it might feel romantic or selfless in the moment, Jung understood that this kind of self-abandonment always leads to resentment, anxiety, and the death of genuine intimacy because you can't truly love someone when you've made them responsible for your psychological well-being. And they can't truly love you when you're not showing up as your authentic self in the relationship. The solution Jung proposed is both simple and revolutionary. You must learn to develop a conscious relationship with your own animus energy so that you can access your inner masculine qualities directly rather than through projection onto others. This means practicing making decisions based on your own wisdom and intuition rather than constantly seeking external input. It means setting boundaries that protect your energy and time, even when it might disappoint or inconvenience your partner. It means pursuing your own goals and interests with the same passion and commitment you would give to supporting someone else's dreams. Most importantly, it means learning to validate your own experiences and emotions without needing someone else to confirm that your feelings are reasonable or justified. When you can trust your own perceptions, set your own standards, and take action on your own behalf, you become what Jung called an individuated woman. Someone who has integrated both her feminine and masculine aspects and can engage in relationships from a place of wholeness, rather than neediness or codependency. This doesn't mean becoming cold or independent to the point of emotional unavailability, and it doesn't mean you can't be supportive and loving toward a partner who deserves your care and attention. Jung's concept of individuation actually makes you more capable of genuine love because you're no longer approaching relationships from a place of psychological desperation or unconscious projection. You can see your partner clearly for who they really are rather than as a symbol of your own unrealized potential. And you can offer your authentic self rather than a performance designed to earn approval and avoid abandonment. Understanding Jung's insights about the anima and animus can literally save you from years of repeating the same painful patterns in love. And it can help you recognize when you're with someone who appreciates your wholeness versus someone who prefers you diminished and dependent. The right partner for an individuated woman is someone who is also doing their own psychological work, someone who has developed a healthy relationship with their own inner feminine and isn't looking for you to complete them or fix them or be responsible for their emotional well-being. Jung's work reveals that the healthiest relationships happen between two people who have each claimed their own psychological authority and can come together as equals, offering their gifts and receiving their partner's gifts without losing themselves in the process. This is the kind of love that enhances who you are rather than asking you to become less than who you are. And once you experience this level of authentic connection, you'll never again be willing to disappear into someone else's life at the expense of your own growth and evolution. If this resonates with you and you recognize these patterns in your own relationship history, you're not alone. And there's nothing wrong with you for having fallen into these unconscious dynamics. Jung believed that becoming aware of these patterns is the beginning of true psychological freedom, and every woman deserves to experience love that celebrates her completeness rather than exploiting her unconscious projections. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to keep exploring these deep psychological insights that can transform how you show up in love and help you build the kind of authentic, empowering relationships that Jung knew were possible when two individuated people choose to share their lives together.